Much of the information in safety requirement specifications can be documented in the general requirements section. General requirements, as you see on the screen here, are simply text statements about how the safety instrument system should be designed. The reason that we call them general requirements is that often a requirement applies to an entire safety instrumented system or an entire category of subsystem or component, and documenting that information one time and having it be applicable across the entire SIS instead of restating it over and over for every individual component or safety instrumented function is a much more efficient way to document the information. So what you see on this screen here are some typical general requirements that could be found in a safety requirement specification. So for instance, specification 5.05.02.05 in the group called General Requirements says, the logic solvers shall conform to the manufacturer's design, installation, and maintenance guidelines for meeting safety instrumented system applications. Also, that means that you should be using the safety manual, and actually the safety manual shows up as a general requirement a couple rows above. So these are, again, requirements that are going to apply across the board regardless of the specific component that we're talking about. Now, there are a couple ways to enter requirements in. If you're starting a new project from a blank slate, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to click on the button entitled Import Requirements from Library. And then it's going to ask you which library item do you want to import. So Kenexis has a standard library, and there are different lists of safety requirement specifications that you can choose from that you can define, but I have the Kenexis standard. So when I click Kenexis standard and then click on the import requirements button, it's going to go into the library, which you have access to view the Kenexis standard library, or you can create your own custom library. It will then take all of the requirements that are in the library and pull them into the project. Once again, you have a separate copy in your project that is different from what's in the library. So when you change what's in the library, it doesn't change what's in a particular project, and you can change the items that are in the project without worrying about how it's going to impact or change the library. So that's how you're going to want to do your first bulk import of all of the standard requirements, the boilerplate from your company, or you can use the Kenexis standard information as a starting point. Then, once the data points are in, if there's a requirement that has been missed, you can click on the Add New Requirement button, and you will enter in the information about the requirement. So if I wanted a requirement that says to use blue paint on solenoids, let's say that's, I know that's kind of a trivial requirement, but I'm just putting something in for your information. So that would be the requirement, and then you need to number the requirement. So maybe it's item number 14, and then you could put the groups and the subgroups. So if you wanted to group together requirements associated with field devices, and maybe even you might want to take that field device group and subdivide it even further to say field devices, solenoid valves. So it's just a mechanism for grouping requirements together. So I'll just say field devices, solenoid valves, and then click insert, and that will bring that specific requirement into the database. Okay, so that shows you how to add new requirements. If you need to edit a requirement, as is typical, you simply double click on it and it will bring up the information for you to be able to edit. Now, I've noted that this arrangement is set up for general requirements but it is also the place where you will enter in your specific requirements for any safety instrumented system requirements that are going to be specific to a particular device or a particular installation. So the reason for specific notes is to call out exceptions to general requirements or to textually document something that is not going to be documentable in some of the data sheets that we're going to be talking about subsequently. So if, for instance, in a cause and effect diagram, you had a complex or novel action that takes place, or possibly a calculation that would be required to take place as a result of multiple inputs, you would document that in a specific note. And you would enter it in, again, the same way. Just add the requirement, give it a number, put the requirement in. So that's how you enter in specific requirements. It's all a set of requirements in the requirements table.